stress disorder has been recognized as having a lasting effect on veterans from the Vietnam and Gulf Wars.
But Americans knew virtually nothing about PTSD in the 1940s, and that is the focus of this new book, Batter's Box. It is a novel of baseball, war, and love. And we welcome its author, Andy Kutler, a Madison native who now calls Washington, D.C. home. Andy, great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Congratulations on the book. Now, you wouldn't normally think baseball, war, and love would be connected in some way. Tell me what the inspiration was for this book.
Well, long ago in my career, I worked with veterans advocacy issues, and I met a veteran, a World War II veteran, and he was a terrific guy, and I asked him to share with me his service, and he wouldn't talk to me about it. Instead, he handed me a book, which was his self-published memoir, and he had a great, compelling story to tell, but he couldn't talk about it. He could only share it in writing, and that was the first time I realized how extensive this issue was, that we had a large number of World War II veterans who were affected psychologically from the war, and their story is not very well known.
Now, back then, like we said, they didn't really understand what PTSD was. So how is it writing about that? I mean, it seems like a confusing thing to write about when they don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what makes the story so interesting. It has been called many things over the years. In World War I, they called it shell shock. In World War II, they called it combat fatigue, as if a good night's rest would make it all go away. And the medical profession, what we knew about it wasn't very advanced. It didn't mean they weren't sincere and they weren't trying to help these veterans. They just didn't know. So exploring that, I thought, was also really interesting, understanding the history of this. We of course, are much more familiar with it today, but in the 1940s, very little was known.
This is a fictional story. You have characters that you sort of created out of your imagination. And the thing that always fascinates me about a serious topic in a fictional book is you must have had to do a lot of research. You're talking about battlefields in Belgium, and you're trying to write about an authentic experience like post-traumatic stress. You must have done a lot of research.
I did. First and foremost, as I spoke to a number of veterans, young and old, who have been affected by this, and in some cases, some shared more with me than others, but that was very helpful in understanding it. In terms of the historical aspects of some of the combat scenes that I write about, I did a lot of reading, and I had to make a couple trips to Belgium. Somebody had to do it. I stepped up, I volunteered, but I actually walked those battlefields and actually spoke with people in the villages and the towns that I write about and about their memories of those battle scenes. So really that helped me understand everything.
And so on top of PTSD, this is also a love story and about baseball. There's a lot of things in this. Explain, when this character comes back, he's trying to fit into his life?
Yeah, that's the heart of the story, is his return from wartime and trying to readjust to peacetime. And of course, there is the woman he loves, and he's been away for 4 years, and he's very much a changed man. We had 16 million of these men overseas fighting in combat. They all came back. Some of them adjusted very seamlessly. Others, the transition was much more difficult. So we see it, we both understand his perspective and his reluctance to share his story or share his problems with others. We also see it from his love interest side of things. I mean, if you've ever had a family member or friend with a psychological condition, I think these characters will be very relatable to you.
You've had such an interesting career. You worked in politics, you've worked in the Secret Service, you've been in Washington a long time. How did you develop your love of writing? How did this come about?
Well, I inherited part of it from my father, who was a prolific writer, but really I kind of discovered writing late in my career, and by chance I was able to do some writing for the Huffington Post, and I decided several years ago I was going to take a crack at a book, and it's been, I love it. It's very exhilarating, it's challenging. I have a day job on top of it, so I don't sleep much, and there's a lot of Diet Coke in my life, but really I discovered it late in life, and I love it.
This seems like a little bit of a love letter to your dad. Your dad was a longtime UW-Madison history professor. We all remember him so fondly, and you talk about how you used to talk about history around the dinner table. He loved baseball, so there's that component of it as well. Was he a big part of your inspiration?
Absolutely. I mean, we may have been the only father-son combination in America that talked about the Federalist Papers at the dinner table. But he, you know, I mean, this was a man who was passionate about history, and that made me passionate about it, but he also loved baseball. He loved his Cleveland Indians, and then when he moved here to Madison, his inherited team, the Milwaukee Birds, and he passed that on to me as well. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever received from him was, write what you love. Yeah. I love baseball, I love military history. history, so I found a way to mesh those two and also address a subject that I care dearly about. So
yeah, that's an important subject.
absolutely.
Wow. Well, thank you so much.
Great to see you, Andy. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And welcome home. Good to have you back in Madison for a while. If you're interested to hear more, you can join Andy and Doug Moe tonight at Mystery to Me Bookstore on Monroe Street. They're going to be having a discussion and a book signing. You still have plenty of time to get there. It starts tonight at 7. Thank you so much for coming. See you soon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.